Hello, everyone. Welcome to the channel of terror and horror. Today, we bring you a series of the creepiest and scariest stories that will send shivers down your spine. If you're a brave fan of horror content, get ready for a dark journey into the unknown, as we'll confront you with fears from your worst nightmares today. But before we embark on this chilling adventure, don't forget to subscribe to the channel and hit the notification bell to make sure you won't miss a single story. Warning, this video is so terrifying that it might keep you awake at night, so watch it at your own risk. Are you ready? Liam lay awake in his tent, his mind racing with thoughts and worries. He looked over at the empty cot beside him, its neatly folded sheets and blankets. It had been occupied by his friend, Alex, who had left camp earlier that day due to a family emergency. Liam couldn't help but feel a sense of unease as he lay there, alone in the darkness. He tried to shake the feeling and close his eyes, but sleep refused to come. Suddenly, Liam heard a rustling outside his tent. He sat up, heart racing, and listened intently. There it was again, the sound of footsteps moving around outside. Liam's mind immediately went to the worst-case scenario. What if it was a bear or a stranger? He could feel his palms getting sweaty and his breathing becoming shallow. Then, he heard a giggle. It was a high-pitched, childlike laugh. Liam felt his muscles relax slightly. It was probably just one of the other campers playing a prank. He decided to go check it out and put an end to it. Exiting his tent, he saw a small figure darting away from him, giggling. Liam recognized the child, Emily, the youngest camper at the site. She must have slipped away from her tent and decided to play a game of hide-and-seek. Liam smiled to himself, relieved that it was nothing serious. He called out to Emily, telling her it was time to return to bed. But there was yet to be a response. Liam's smile faded as he realized that Emily had disappeared into the darkness. He called out her name, increasingly worried when no answer was answered. He began to search for her, moving through the campsite and calling out her name. But there was no sign of her. Liam's heart sank. He knew the surrounding woods were dense and dangerous, and the thought of Emily being lost in them was too much to bear. He decided to alert the other campers and begin a search party. They fanned into the woods, calling Emily's name and shining flashlights into the trees. As the minutes ticked by, Liam's anxiety grew. What if they couldn't find her in time? Suddenly, there was a rustling in the bushes. Liam's heart leaped into his throat as he ran towards the sound. And then, there she was, Emily, safe and sound, with a big grin. She had been hiding in a nearby bush the entire time. Liam breathed a sigh of relief and hugged the little girl tightly. He realized that sometimes, our fears can get the best of us, but staying calm and focused in times of crisis is essential. He walked Emily back to her tent, tucking her in and reminding her to stay put in the future. And as he lay back down in his tent, Liam knew that he would never forget the lesson he had learned that night, that sometimes, the scariest things are all in our heads. The luxury saloon cruised along the dirt road at 44 miles per hour. "Bloody genius," Norman said from the passenger seat. "I don't know why we didn't think of this before." Don watched the Gothic mansion disappear from the rearview mirror. "Before, we weren't desperate," he said, refocusing on the twisted road ahead. "I've worked my arsehole to the bone for that family." 6 sodding years, Norman said before resting his muddy boots on the leather dashboard. "Should you be driving so slow? The last thing we need is the police stopping us." "How far is the cabin, then?" "About an hour away," Don said. Norman pulled a notebook from his green overalls. "Mind if I go over my set?" he said. Don rolled his eyes. "If you must." "What about this one?" Norman said. "The other day, my mother asked if I thought there's sex after death. I told her it depends on the coroner." "For Christ's sake," Don laughed. "That's foul." "And did you need to mention mother?" It was a tiny log cabin nestled in a boreal forest's belly. Lush grapevines covered the aged walls, and its thatched roof had discolored with time. Norman squinted through the windshield. "This is it," he said. "What do you think?" Don said and snatched the keys from the ignition. "You're still mad?" "I had no idea the Chariot would explode like that." Don pressed the key fob, and the boot crept open. "Oh, you had no idea." Meanwhile, I'm driving 40 minutes with a sticky crotch. "Jesus." I said sorry. "What more do you want?" "Let's get inside," Don said while exiting the vehicle. He slid the key into the cabin's rusty lock and turned to Norman. "Aren't we forgetting something?" he said. Norman's eyes widened. He rushed to the open boot. A bound schoolgirl lay in the fetal position, motionless, with a cloth sack over her head. "Come on, Lilybeth," he said. "Let's get you somewhere comfortable." And in dusk's misty red aura filled with frog songs, Norman carried her inside. Rural furnishings, walnut bookshelves, and a dead grandfather clock adorned the cabin's interior. An underlying odor of decay infused the deserted dwelling. Norman looked around. "Where are we putting her?" "Here," Don said, pointing to a small chair in the room's center. "Well, give her a cushion to sit on at least," Norman said. Don obliged before roping Lilybeth's lean wrists to the chair. "Jesus. There are wolves out here?" Norman said, noticing the taxidermy mount of a wolf's snarling head above the fireplace. "Don't worry," Don said while loading his double-barreled shotgun. "We're covered." "Christ. I hope we never have to use that thing." Don placed his hand on Norman's bony shoulder. "Everything will be fine. Now, fetch the grub. I'll make the call." Norman retrieved the small bag of fruit from the car and placed it on the counter near the shotgun. "Are you hungry, Lilybeth?" he said. The girl remained still and silent. "Don't be afraid. We're not going to hurt you. I promise. You'll be back home before you know it." He pulled out his notebook. "I'll tell you a joke," he said, flicking through the pages. "Two nuns in a bath." "No, I can't tell you that one." "Ah, here we are. Why don't cannibals eat clowns?" "Because they taste funny." The girl remained still and silent. "I'll read you something instead." He perused a dusty bookshelf. "Ah, The Hunchback of Notre Dame," he said. "I love a hero with a twisted backstory." Lilybeth's chest shook with laughter, but no sound came from her. Don ended his call and hurried back inside the cabin. "We're in luck," he said. The organ-legger stumbled across a spare heart. How on earth did she stumble across a spare heart? That's neither here nor there. He rubbed his hands together. She's willing to let us have it at a discount. So, how much are we demanding from Vandenberg? Don't worry about numbers, Don said. I'm starving. Where's the grub? Near your shotgun. Don held up the bag of fruit. What the hell's this? The grub, Norman said. No, this is a bag of plums. Where's the basket? Basket? Yes. The basket. Back at the mansion. On the counter, sitting next to these plums, the basket, grass-fed steaks, moose cheese, olive bread, Bakewell fucking tarts. His voice cracked. The basket. Keep your voice down. You'll frighten the girl, Norman said. Don balled his fists and marched out of the cabin. He sat on the porch steps and called the Vandenberg mansion. Come on, you posh pompous brat, he said. Answer the phone. The golden telephone rang twice before his lordship answered. Lars Vandenberg speaking. I assume advising that it is in one's utmost interest to release my daughter would only be words wasted? Very well. What are one's demands? A pauper's ransom is comparable to one's intellect. Time and location? Very well, my dear mendicant. Bide one's time. I promise to pay one in full before dawn. Tally-ho, he said and ended the call. My lord, I've tracked the saloon's GPS to a cabin 60 minutes away, Vandenberg's butler said. Am I to alert the constable? No, dear Miles. A more personal stratagem will suffice. That imbecilic duo has committed their last transgression. I deem them unworthy of mercy. And it is the season, Vandenberg said. Is it not? Indeed, my lord, the butler grinned. It is the season. Don marched back inside the cabin. Sod him, he said. Vandenberg speaks to me like he's buying an armoire. Armoire? Norman said. It's some kind of French couch. But he's going to pay, right? Don took a deep breath and nodded. Yes. He's going to pay. Well, then. Why the long face? We should celebrate, Norman said, revealing a bottle of red wine. From Vandenberg's special cabinet. Don's face lit up. From the special cabinet? Norman squinted at the label. I got you the State Feet Rothschild 1982. Ah, the perfect pairing for plums and kidnap, Don said and received the bottle. Night enclosed the cabin as wisps of smoke fled the cobbled chimney. Don and Norman sat side by side in moonlight on the porch steps. Do you hear that? Don said. I don't hear anything. Beautiful, isn't it? Don, Norman said. We're doing the right thing, aren't we? Our lives are a series of pain and joy, brother, Don said. Let's enjoy the wine and the stars and the silence together. Leave morality to the philosophers. You're right. A toast, then, Norman said before raising his mug of wine. To Vandenberg's dosh. Don raised the bottle. And to my father's new heart. May he live a long and healthy life. Norman shuffled inside his sleeping bag. Don, he whispered. Someone's watching us through the window. Don glimpsed a pair of fiery white eyes before they vanished into the dark. Is it wolves? Norman said. I bet it's a grizzly bear looking for something to eat. Offer him those plums. Be quiet, Don said, picking up his shotgun. He crept across the room in the orange glow emanating from the fire. Can't see a damn thing. He opened the window and aimed his barrel into the cold night air. Don, your gun's not loaded. It is. I loaded it earlier. No. I removed the cartridges. Why would you do something so stupid? Because it's dangerous to keep a loaded gun near a child. Quick, then. Hand me the cartridges. Something's getting close.